Happy Halloween, Chicago! You have found your way into Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio. Hopefully, we're just going to be giving you treats tonight. I hope we don't have any tricks. But stick around. You never know. One person in town that has definitely been giving things away is Bears general manager Ryan Poles. We have not one, but two trades to be discussing tonight. So you can guess where we're going to be leading things off. What does that mean for the rest of this Bears season? How should we be taking in these moves and the rest of the season? Well, one thing we should definitely be doing is keeping our eyes on Justin Fields. I think he might be turning the corner. We will discuss that. And then when we're done with the Bears, if we've got any time left, of course, we'll be making our rounds around to the other teams in Chicago. What have the Bulls been up to? Surprisingly, I want to talk about the Blackhawks a little bit. I know I'm as shocked as you are. They're worth talking about, maybe? The Illini are ranked as high as they have been in 15 years. And then the White Sox now are the only team in Major League Baseball without a manager. When will they be finding one, and who might that person be? All that and more in this special Halloween edition of Chi-Town Weekly. Buckle it on up, open up some candy, let's have some fun. And once again, hello and good evening, everyone. I am your host, Adam Karnick. So glad that you are here with us tonight on episode 109 of Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio. A ton to get into in tonight's show. So I want to get through our homework, if you will, as quickly as we can. Of course, IE Sports Radio, we are available for you on all of the major social platforms. You find us on Twitter, you find us on Instagram, Facebook, on TikTok at IE Sports Radio. You know how to find us. For the last 8.5 years, IE Sports Radio, we have been bringing you outstanding content ranging from shows dedicated to specific cities or specific sports all the way up to larger. We're now starting to incorporate some game calls and things like that into our repertoire. And we're able to do this thanks to your support. If you go to our website, iesportsradio.com, you'll find the link to our Patreon page. We've got 5 different tiers on Patreon. The first one starting at just $5 a month. This donation gets you a shout out on every single one of our shows. Higher donations include access to our podcasting university. We've got merchandise that's available for you as well. Or even if you get high enough, you even get a chance to be featured on your own segment of The Defining Moment with Larry B. And at this time, I do want to acknowledge our Patreon supporters right now. Emlos Great, Key to the Gate, our Anonymous Donor, and Bay Area Raised. Thank you guys so much for supporting us on Patreon, and thank you, the listener, for continuing to support us week in and week out. Not just this show, but all of our shows. It really is appreciated. If you're listening live here on Spreaker.com tonight, of course, hop on into the chat room. I see Taryn Rodriguez is already in. We can interact back and forth that way. Ways you can interact with this show also. This show is on Twitter at IESRC. You can follow along with me personally on Twitter as well. I am at Adam_Karnick. And of course, tonight we've got a lot to get through. I know there's a chance that for at least one person in the audience that I'm probably breaking this news to them. So in case you have not heard, the Bears made another trade this afternoon, about 6 hours ago, 5 hours ago. The Bears traded Roquan Smith to the Baltimore Ravens. In return, the Bears got a second-round pick in next year's draft. They also got a fifth-round pick in next year's draft. They also, I'm pulling up the story right now because I saw late into the story, it turns out the Bears are also getting a player in the deal. Linebacker A.J. Klein is coming to the Bears as well. So in exchange for Roquan Smith, the Bears get a second-round pick, a fifth-round pick, and A.J. Klein. A.J. Klein, just to give you a little bit, my mom knew it was her that when I was saying there was at least one person that hadn't heard the news yet, and chimes into the chat. Oh, yeah, I had not heard. So sad. It is. A.J. Klein, just to give some stats on him, he is a 31-year-old linebacker on the season for the Ravens. He had 4 solo tackles, no sacks, no forced fumbles, no interceptions. Yeah, definitely not somebody that, was of a terrific value to the Ravens. A guy. They got a warm body back in return, as well as picks. So that makes, since last we've talked, Roquan Smith and Robert Quinn are both gone. So I wanted to start there with the trades, and then we'll get into the games. But especially with the Roquan Smith trade, that's just where we've got to start, is with the trades tonight. I loved the Robert. I keep wanting to confuse their names. So if I wind up mixing and matching their names, I'm not doing it on purpose. I know who they are. I keep wanting to call them Robert Smith and Roquan Quinn, and I know that's not right. So if I take an extra beat, you know where I'm coming from. The Quinn trade. The Robert Quinn trade. I loved that the minute they made it. One of my coworkers looked at me and said, "Hey, the Bears just made a move. Who do you think it is?" And I said, Roquan? Nope, it wasn't Roquan. Okay, well, if it wasn't Roquan, then it had to be Quinn. Yep. What do you think they got back? My guess was a 6th. So when he told me they got a 4th-round pick in return, I was ecstatic. I thought that was a fantastic move for a player that is on the other side of 30 to be able and having a bad year statistically. And Quinn only had 1 sack as a Bear this season and only had a handful of tackles. That was a fantastic move by Ryan Poles. And it just made sense. I mean, the minute they traded Khalil Mack, you felt like Quinn was next. Now this Roquan Smith trade. This is a tough one. This is a really, really tough one to look at. And I'm surprised even at myself when I heard it this afternoon. It was tough to process it. So bear with me here. I kind of want to use this as a little bit of a fan therapy session, if you will, as we go through this, because this is a tough trade to look at. On the one hand, there is no way you can convince me, just as a blanket statement, that the Chicago Bears are better off without Roquan Smith. There's no way you can convince me of that. He's 25 years old. He's entering the prime of his career. This is different from Robert Quinn, Because with Robert Quinn, he's 32. You're thinking by the time the Bears are ready to realistically be challenging for a championship, which we're probably talking 2024, if we're being honest about it. They should certainly be better in 2023, and we'll get to that reason why in a second. And Mike Pat joining the chat. This Ravens fan would like to thank you for Roquan Smith. I'm getting into that trade. And Mike, I'd love to get your opinion of it too, being on the other side of it, giving up a second, a fifth, and a throw-in player for Roquan Smith. I'd love to hear your take on it. But with Robert Quinn, it was, okay, by the time the Bears are realistically ready to be challenging for a championship, Robert Quinn's going to be 34, going on 35. Realistically, what will he bring to the table at that point? Chances are you'd be getting diminishing returns. You certainly wouldn't be getting 18 and a half sacks in a 17-game season. I wouldn't think. Odds would certainly be against that being what you'd be getting out of him. So it makes all the sense in the world to trade him to someplace where he can compete right now and get something for him. But for Roquan Smith, he's entering his prime right now. He's 25. He'll be in his mid-20s when the Bears are at a position of being able to challenge for championships. You hope. If all goes well and goes according to plan, when Justin Smith, I'm getting all my names just mixed up here. When Justin Fields is hopefully getting Pro Bowl votes and getting accolades, and the offense is clicking, and the team is perennially challenging, perennially playoff contenders and legitimately challenging for championships. Roquan will be in the prime of his career. So there's no way you can say, oh, well, they're better off without him. Dude plays a terrific brand of football at an important spot in this defense. So this is a tough one on that standpoint. And I'm reading in the chat from Mike and Taryn to get kind of the outsider, the Baltimore perspective and an outsider perspective here. Mike Pat, who covers both the Washington Commanders and the Baltimore Ravens for Let's Whine About DMV Sports for us on Sunday nights. Mike likes it. Didn't give up a ridiculous amount of capital. Got a great player. Only thing that worries Mike is whatever contract we will have to give him. Yeah, that's going to be the interesting, because of course the Ravens, you'd love to sign him. You'd love for this to not be a rental, to not just give up 2 picks and a player for 10 weeks of Roquan Smith. You'd like it to turn into something. Though I would imagine Roquan at this point is probably hell-bent on hitting the open market. So that'll be an interesting thing to keep an eye on too. And then Taryn chiming in, the Ravens got a steal when it came to Smith. And Mike feels like Roquan Smith just becomes the best linebacker the Ravens have had in a long time. So that makes it hard as a Bears fan, because we know we gave up something good. You know that giving up Roquan Smith is not making the Bears better in the short term or the long term. But here's the flip side of it, all right? This is the kind of move that smart organizations make. And I'll give you some examples. A perfect one coming right up this week. Tyreek Hill. The Bears are going to be going up against Tyreek Hill and the Miami Dolphins this Sunday. They finally come home. They had one home game the entire month of October. They get to come home for a little bit in November. A couple times anyway. Tyreek Hill's in his first year with Miami. He got traded over from Kansas City in the offseason. And he's having terrific season. He's having a terrific career. I mean, he's a top wide receiver in the NFL. You can't tell me that Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs didn't want Tyreek Hill. Of course they did. He's a perennial Pro Bowler. He's an all-star. He's one of those players that you have to account for as a defense every time you're on the field. But they recognized that we're not going to be able to re-sign him. We can't lose him for nothing. This is something, if you're a regular listener to the show, first of all, thank you. Second of all, you've heard me bring up a couple of times how I'm not as excited as others are with the Bears having a treasure chest of salary cap space next season. It's up to now $127 million in cap space. Almost 3.5 times more the next closest team. The reason I'm not as excited is because good teams, smart teams, don't let their talented players even get to free agency. They either lock them up long term or they trade them off and get something in return for them. Tyreek Hill is a perfect example. The Chiefs looked to sign him long term. They realized that his number and their number was way too far apart from each other, that they'd never be able to get to the middle. So rather than play out the string and, all right, we'll do one more year with him. Maybe we can try and make something work under the franchise tag, or maybe his number will come down. Maybe. They said, no, we're not going to be able to make up this difference. Let's trade him. They send him to Miami. They get multiple draft picks in return, and they're able to then replenish their talent pool. We've seen Andy Reid and the Chiefs. And remember, Ryan Poles comes from Kansas City. He spent all those years in that organization learning from those guys. We've seen the Chiefs do this. We've seen Bill Belichick do this for decades, where he recognized that hey, there's this player whose contract is coming up here in about a year or two, and I don't think I'm going to re-sign him. I'll go flip him to somebody. I'll get some poor sucker to give me a first-round pick for him, and then I'll just turn around and draft this guy's replacement. We see smart teams operate like this. Obviously, it's not a first-round pick, but you're talking a second and a fifth. Look at the success the Bears have had with. Don't try to tell me that second-round picks are meaningless. Look at the success they've had with the second round in just the past few years. Jalen Johnson, he's a second-round pick. Jaquan Brisker, Kyler Gordon. I know Kyler Gordon got lit up yesterday by CeeDee Lamb. We'll talk about that eventually. Those guys are having good rookie years. Jalen Johnson was a second-round pick. Matt Forte was a second-round pick. You want to go back a ways. Go back even further. Charles Tillman was a second-round pick. You can find talented football players, impact players in the second round. Sure, you're not going to find a stud quarterback there. I don't think we need one of those, by the way. That's something else we're going to talk about more. I think we can take quarterback off of the off-season to-do list. And, we got a second round, but a fifth-round pick, what's that worth? Well, you know how we always used to say that Roquan Smith was Lance Briggs Jr.? Lance Briggs was a fifth-round draft pick. You can find guys in those. They're not useless. These aren't scraping the bottom of the barrel here. You know, you look at what Poles did last year. Poles somehow managed to get 8 or 9 picks in last year's draft. The overwhelming majority of them were on day 3. They were rounds 5 through 7. The Bears are up to 9 draft picks now in this April's draft. And most of them are in the first 4 rounds, where you can find guys that can have an immediate impact with your roster. They've got a first, they've got 2 seconds, a third, and 2 fourths. That's 6 of your 9 picks are in the top 2/3 of the draft. Unlike last year, where 4 or 5 of your picks were all in the bottom third of the draft. Guys that are definitely projects. Not that they're necessarily bad players, but certainly trending more on the project side of things. So it's gonna make these next 10 weeks, and Mike does a good job pointing this out too. He's saying as a non-Bears fan, I see why the Bears did it. You get something for a player who is probably gone anyways. Doesn't make it any easier. No, it doesn't. This one hurts. This is one that hurts. It hurt. It got me. I was surprised at how much it got me, because I'd been thinking of all the logic side of it, and then the emotions side of it hit me when the trade actually happened. It was, wow, this was hard. This is a hard one because of the player you're giving up. But there's a direction here. And is some of it coming from first-time ignorance in Ryan Poles? Probably. He's never done this before. He's never been burned by one of these before, you know? And I do want to say, it is entirely fair to grade these trades as incomplete right now, if that's what you want to do. I know we live in a world where we have to instantaneously assign it a grade, that we have to, well, who won this trade? You got to tell me right now. And that's and there is a certain amount of fun in that, in analyzing these deals and trying to assign a winner and a loser. There is certainly some fun to be had in that. It's like we have a little bit, we get just a little bit of a power trip off of it. Ha ha! Ryan Poles, you have to answer to me. Never mind, you have no idea who I am, and you'll probably never hear this. The fact is, you didn't impress me with that move. Oh. All right, ego trip aside there. It's perfectly fine to assign both of these as incompletes until we see what they do with those picks. Do they actually draft people at that spot? Do they turn those picks and turn them into more, or jump up and take somebody higher that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to get? You know, they offer them as ammunition. So point is, if you want to look at these and assign them an incomplete grade, that's okay. You don't have to have an answer right now on the moves, on the trades. It's okay if you want to play the wait and see game. I understand that. And I have no problem with that. In fact, part of me is right there with you. Another part of me says I have to turn around and write an article about this, and I need to pick a lane here. But what do we do then for the rest of this season? How do we watch Bears football now for the next 10 weeks? 9 games in 10 weeks. Because certainly Poles is telling you, hey guys, we're not making the playoffs this year. It ain't happening. We're not going anywhere this year. And it looked like we might. Yeah, well, the 2 best players on the defense I just traded away to make sure we wouldn't. So what do we watch for now? What do we pay attention to over these next 10 weeks? It keeps coming back to what we've been saying since the minute Eberflus and Poles took the jobs. This is all about Justin Fields. And you know what? I think we're seeing something. And I know I've been high on Justin Fields since the second they drafted him. From the minute he fell to 11 and Ryan Pace jumped up there and got him. The only first-round pick left from the Ryan Pace era, Justin Fields. I think, though, we're seeing something. Remember a few weeks ago when we talked after the Minnesota game, the moral victory game, how it was all right. We saw something. We saw something there in the second half. Now you need to start stacking them. Now you need to start adding these together. He's starting to stack them. You had the Washington game, and we're going to set that one aside for a second. We'll come back to the Washington game. You had the game last week against New England, where that was one of the most fun Bears games I have watched in a long time. Even the parts where the Bears weren't necessarily doing well, it was still entertaining. The Patriots were a ton of fun to watch. But if you would have told me that Justin Fields would have had his best professional game in New England against Bill Belichick, no way. But there he was having his best professional game and clearly being the reason they won the game. Now follow that up with what we saw yesterday. Let's just stick with the offense for just a second. The passing yards weren't there. I'll grant you that. 151 yards. There's nothing sexy about 151 yards throwing for a game. You sometimes see that in a quarter from some guys. Certainly in a half. It's not uncommon to see that in a half. So to see only 151 yards passing in the game, 211 yards total offense from Justin Fields yesterday. Yeah, that number doesn't make you want to just jump up out of your seat. But consider these numbers. Three touchdowns, a career high for touchdowns for Justin Fields yesterday. 2 throwing, 1 running. He had never had a 3-touchdown game in his career. 0 turnovers for Justin Fields. He had never before had a game with multiple touchdowns and 0 turnovers. He had that yesterday. A career best in completion percentage. Just under 74% of his throws. And that's with Velus Jones dropping a 70-yard handoff. That's with EQ Brown and Dante Pettis dropping what would have been touchdown catches. He still managed to complete basically 74% of his throws, a career best. And he had his career best passer rating of 120 yesterday. It wasn't as much fun to watch A, because the team got curb stomped, and B, because you had to squint a little bit more yesterday. But he had another, certainly one of his top 2 games yesterday. He's stacking these starts. And now we go back to the Washington start. Okay, yeah, they lost that game. They never should have lost that game to Washington. But for all the bad, horrible, single-handedly setting football back 50 years that went on in that Washington game, he drove them down the field and had them in position to win the game and threw the game-winning touchdown pass twice against Washington. Short of running into the end zone and catching it himself, there's nothing more he could have done to have won that game against Washington. I'm not willing to just completely throw that one out either. At the very least, we're talking about 3 out of 4 games in a row, 3 out of 4 games here where he's putting on these performances and showing you that he's got it. And you could state a case that it's been 4 in a row because of the way the Washington game finished. You know, it's not his fault that Dante Pettis can't catch or that Darnell Mooney had to double clutch. You know, he put those balls where they needed to be. The Pettis one, I'm willing to give Pettis a little bit of a break, simply because when he landed, he kind of bent backwards in half a little bit. So it'd be hard to hold on to the ball. I'll grant him that. But we're seeing it from Fields. We're starting to see the evolution and the maturation and the growth. It's happening. Credit Getsy and Eberflus too. We hear coaches all the time talk about, you know, when they approach a bye week, oh, you know, we're gonna dive into the film and we're gonna figure this out, and we're gonna, you know, nobody's gonna scout us harder than we're gonna scout ourselves. And ultimately, what they come out with is, oh yeah, we're doing everything fine. The players, we just need to practice more. The players just need to execute better. Eberflus and Getsy said, no, this isn't working. Let's figure out what we can do to make it work. And they adjusted. So kudos to those guys for making the adjustments, for being willing to say what we thought was going to work hasn't. So let's adjust and do some things that let's try something different. And what they're trying differently is working. You know, that was a top 6 scoring defense yesterday that the Bears put up 29 points on. The Cowboys hadn't given up 29 to anybody all year. You look at their numbers, as I'm pulling them up right now. As I'm pulling them up right now, you know, the Cowboys, the most points they had given up in a game before yesterday, they hadn't even given up 20. If I am, as I'm scanning through here again real fast, as I'm scanning through looking at, yeah, they hadn't even given up 20 points in a game. The Bears put up 29 on them. Yeah, the defense got curb stomped. Yeah, Kyler Gordon got himself an education from CeeDee Lamb yesterday. Woo! Class was in session, and CeeDee Lamb was the professor. Whoa, Kyler Gordon had himself a rough game yesterday. Dak Prescott, basically, it was just, all right, where's Lamb? Oh, there he is. Okay, that's where I'm going with the ball in the first half. There's problems galore. But what we can do over these next 10 games, we can continue to see the maturation and the evolution of Justin Fields as what seems to be he's turning into a genuine, bona fide, difference-making quarterback in the NFL. And that is exciting. All right, we are going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, I do want to discuss some other teams outside of the Bears a little bit. This is Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Are you a fan of Buffalo sports? Are you thinking of changing loyalties and becoming a Buffalo sports fan? Do you even know where Buffalo is on the map? Did you know Canada is closer to Buffalo than New York City? Welcome to the Buffalo Huddle, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Patty Bax. This is a podcast designed for you, the passionate sports fan. I know you love your sports. Who doesn't? I cover Buffalo sports and so much more by bringing in the human elements. I call it Buffalo Sports with a Twist. Join me as we take a journey into the world of Buffalo sports. I guarantee you'll fall in love with Buffalo just like I did. Each week we start with an inspiration, question of the day, a Buffalo fun fact, and our weekly challenge to you, the listener. Come huddle up with me every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time for the Buffalo Huddle with Patty Bax on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. As we say in Buffalo, go Bills!
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
It's IE Sports Radio. It is your direct feed for all that is sports. It is Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris every Tuesday night right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris is the most comprehensive view on Philadelphia sports exclusively right here on IE Sports Radio. You know what it is, your direct feed for all that is sports. Tuesday night, IE Sports Radio, Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour, every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter, at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always willing to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. We are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back into Chi-Town Weekly, everybody. Adam Kernick here with you. Just a few minutes left to go in the show tonight. Thank you, everybody, for getting through what was really, it was microphone therapy there for the first 30-some-odd minutes of the show as we went through the Robert Quinn and, much more importantly, the Roquan Smith trades that the Bears have made here in the last week. Some hard stuff to get through, but you can see the plan. You can see the light at the end of the tunnel coming up there for the Bears. So hopefully some greener pastures are ahead. One team that is having some surprising success right now that I'd admit I did not think we'd be talking about again anytime soon. The Chicago Blackhawks. The Blackhawks, now they've technically lost their last two games. But they've been in overtime the last couple of nights. And then they had a regulation loss right before that. But as we sit here on Halloween night, the Blackhawks are in third place in the Central Division. They're 4-3-2. They have 10 points in 9 games. What in the... How in the... How? How? How are we 9 games in and they're technically above 500 in hockey parlance? Remember, in hockey talk, it's if you have more points than you have games played, you're above 500, regardless of how many games you've actually won. You know, they've played 9 games. They've only won 4 of them. That's still above 500 in hockey talk, since they have 2 overtime losses. How? And you look at you look at some of the teams that they beat along the way too. And overall, I mean, they dropped their first 2 games. Straight up dropped their first 2 games. Since then, they're 4-1-2. You know, they're 4-1-2 in their last 7. They beat Detroit. Detroit's going to be very possibly a playoff team this year. They beat the Florida Panthers 4-2. They have no business beating Florida. Florida is one of the top teams in the NHL. Florida, for those that don't follow the NHL, first of all, listen to us on Tuesday. Listen to Zach and myself on Tuesday nights. We do the Neutral Zone. We have a ton of fun. We talk hockey, yes, but we talk a lot of other things too. It is an hour of entertaining radio on the internet. Sometimes that gets called a podcast. Check us out Tuesday nights, 8 o'clock Central. You'll have fun, I promise. I know you hear, oh God, why do I want to listen to somebody talk about hockey? You'll have fun. I promise you will have fun on Tuesday nights. But the long and the short of it is the Florida Panthers are good. They're really good at hockey. They have no business losing to the Blackhawks. And then they followed that up a couple nights later. They went toe-to-toe with Edmonton. Edmonton was one of the final 4 teams in the NHL a year ago. You know, Edmonton, they put up, as my co-host every night says, they put up video game numbers. You know, they're constantly beating people. Just their game is, we're just going to put the puck in the net and dare you to keep up with us. And the Hawks kept up with them, with their backup goalie, by the way. They've been doing a lot of this lately with their backup, who is a 31-year-old journeyman. You know, they're not even, it's not even like, oh, they're just riding a hot goal. You know, they're just, oh, you know, there's this hot kid in net. Oh, maybe there's a future. No, there's no future in net with what they've got going on right now. You know, with, I even have to look up who it is. You know, there's no future with Alex Stalock in net. No offense, Alex Stalock. You're 35. I don't think you're going to be the goalie when the Blackhawks are next winning championships. Even if that is just 3 years down the road, I don't think you're going to be the guy in net. You know, Andreas Athanasiou last night against Minnesota put up one of the best goals we're likely to see this season. I just got a great pass from Patrick Kane and then off to the races and completely undressed the defender before sneaking it past former Hawks goalie Marc-Andre Fleury for a beautiful goal. If you haven't seen it, you look at it. It's outstanding. But here we are as we close out November. The Hawks are above 500. I have no idea how long it'll last. I fully expect the other shoe to drop sometime soon. You know, as they've got 1 million games at home in November too. As we're looking at the schedule, they play 13 home games. 8 of them, or they play 13 games in November. 8 of them are at home. They're playing a ton of games at home this month. There's a chance they'd be going into December still hovering around 500. I'm not expecting it. I'm not predicting it. But this is fantastic to watch. It's just kind of fun. You know, yeah, we know they're rebuilding. Yeah, we know this team probably isn't headed anywhere. Eventually, the other shoe, the clock is going to strike midnight. But until it does, it's a ton of fun to watch. And we're allowed to just enjoy that, I think. If you can't just allow yourself to separate yourself from the bigger picture and just enjoy the small moments, you got to relax. You got to learn to back off a little bit. So kudos to the Hawks. I have no idea how much longer it'll be until the clock strikes midnight on you. I know it's coming, but until then, just keep winning games. Just keep having fun. Just continue to be a fun team to watch and follow and have some fun with. Unlike the Bulls are being a little frustrating. Both of Jerry Reinsdorf's teams, unfortunately, are being a little frustrating right now. The Bulls, as we sit here on Halloween, are 3-4. And yeah. Every time you think, oh, hey, this is all right, there's something here. Now they turn around and they get blown up by the Cavs, or they get rung up by the Spurs or something like that. I know they're down Lonzo. I know they miss Lonzo. I know there's some growth coming here, but this is an up and down team. We'll see what they do tomorrow night against the Nets. They're in Brooklyn. Hopefully they're able to have some success there. Hopefully they can go on a little bit of a run. It'd be nice to see them go on a little bit of a run here. The White Sox are frustrating because they apparently have decided they don't want a manager. It's been a month since Tony La Russa's retired. I know baseball's weird about, oh, you can't announce things while the World Series is going on. Bite me. Do your jobs. Find a manager. You need one. You're now the only team in MLB without a manager. Let's hop to this, please, shall we? They apparently are rejecting any candidate that's good. Joe Espada's off the list from the Astros. Looks like, we'll see what they do, but don't drag this out any further, please, guys. Let's move this process along. Let's move this process along a little bit. This is annoying and frustrating. I'm not really even a Sox fan, and it's annoying. It's annoying me. It's bothering me that they're being this incompetent as an organization. This is all going to get finished with them. They announced that AJ Pierzynski's the manager or something stupid like that. But you've got an off night tonight because MLB apparently forgot that when they decided to extend the season out into, having the World Series start in November, they apparently forgot that it rains a lot in the fall in places that don't have domes. So you've got an extra night. Let's chop here. Let's get to this. Let's figure this out here, White Sox. Figure out who you're going to do. One last note, and then we're going to get out of here tonight. The Illini, they're up to 13th in the top 25 polls, and it feels like at this point, I feel like they're going to be in the Big Ten title game at this point. That when they go up against Purdue, if they beat Purdue here in a couple of weeks, I know they've got another game before that, but it's starting to feel more and more like, they've got Michigan State this week. Oh, that's going to be. There might be some Sparty players suddenly not available in that game. And then when they have Purdue the following week, it feels like if they run the course, that win over Purdue could clinch the Big Ten West for them. And then who knows? Michigan could be looking ahead to their big game against Ohio State. After that, they could very possibly overlook Illinois. It's possible. Stranger things have happened. All right, we have got to get out of here because coming up right after us, it is Taryn Rodriguez with Set Point, and he was filling me in a little bit at the beginning of the show. There is some great Chicago-related college volleyball news. Northwestern women's volleyball pulled off a huge upset, beating Purdue last week. Purdue was ranked 12th in the country. Wildcats pulled off that upset. They're looking to make a run to get into the tournament. So Taryn will be talking about that. Illinois women's volleyball beat Penn State last week as well. So some good volleyball things happening with Chicago's teams, Northwestern and Illinois further south. So be sure to stick around for Taryn as he gets us caught up on all of that, plus other things happening around in the world of volleyball. Big thank you to everybody tonight. Thank you to our Patreon supporters, Bay Area Raised, Emlos Great, Key to the Gate, and Anonymous for continuing to support us here on IE Sports Radio. Go to our website, iesportsradio.com. You can find our Patreon link there. Again, it starts at just $5 a month. Thank you to Larry B. and all the hard work he does behind the scenes, getting this ship running and moving and getting everything operating for us. It is very much appreciated. Thank you to Taryn and Mike and to my mother for hopping into the chat room, for indulging me and keeping me going there through that group therapy session there that was the first half of the show, certainly. Finally, thank you for coming and listening every week. I really do appreciate it. It makes this a lot of fun to do. Follow this show on Twitter, IESRC. Follow me personally at Adam_Karnick. You can also I write for Windy City Rant. You can catch my stuff there a couple times a week, WindyCityRant.com. Until next week, everybody be safe, be good. We will be breaking down Bears-Dolphins, plus all kinds of other stuff. We will see you then.